One is the KIPP Infinity Middle School, a charter school in West Harlem that serves a mostly low-income population. The other is the Riverdale Country School, one of the most exclusive private schools in New York City. Tuition just topped $42,000 a year. The good news is pre-K is still just $41,000, so there still are some targets in New York City. So these are obviously two very different schools with very different student populations. And yet, a few years ago, the two educators who were running these two schools found themselves in a similar situation. On paper, both their schools were doing just great. The KIPP kids were all getting fantastic standardized test scores. The Riverdale kids were all getting into the right colleges. And yet, both Dave Levin, the head of the KIPP schools in New York, and Dominic Randolph, the head of the Riverdale school, felt like there was something missing in the education that they were giving to their students. They felt like they were producing graduates who were great test takers, great college application filler-outers, but who were lacking the inner strength, grit or resilience or self-discipline to deal with real challenges in life. And so they would often get out there into the real world, whether that meant high school or college or beyond, and they would encounter some setback, as we all eventually do, and they would often get completely derailed. And so both Dave and Dominic decided that if they wanted to help their students succeed, not just on next week's test, but in the long term and in a deep way, they had to find some way to address their character. So they started working with this team of psychologists, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania who were making a study of character and its constituent parts. And working with them, collaborating, using surveys and statistics, they eventually came up with this list of 7 character strengths that they've decided are the most important, the most predictive of long-term success in children. Here's their list: optimism, zest, grit, curiosity, social intelligence, gratitude, and self-control. I have to say, I don't think this list is necessarily perfect. I don't think these 7 are more magical than say, any other 7. But I do think this list is interesting and important. One of the reasons that I like it is that there are some items that appear on this list that you don't often find when you go into a school and there's a list of values or principles posted in the front hall. Like take zest. If you talk to your average